welcome back to the Little Miss Funeral YouTube channel. Today's video is part 2 to my pet loss series that I'm doing, and for this video I just wanted to go into detail about my experiences when my dog Bandit died. Like I said in part 1, Bandit did die in 2014. He was actually 14 years old at the time, and when he ended up passing away, it wasn't necessarily a huge shock to me and my family because the year prior he was having a lot of different health issues. We had actually found out that he was suffering from, I don't know exactly what it's called right off the top of my head, but it was basically vertigo for dogs, where we had a scare because we had thought that at that time, that year prior, we were going to lose him. But we didn't, and we had another year with him, and it was amazing. He honestly was such a great dog to myself and my family. When he had started to get sick again, we had initially thought that he was suffering from this vertigo that he had the year prior, but it turned out that when we took him to the doctor, it really wasn't. And honestly, the last 2 days of his life, you could just tell that he was in pain. I remember I came home from work one of those days and he had thrown up and gone to the bathroom all over our living room, which was not like him at all. Like, he was such a good dog. Even in his old age, he didn't have any sort of accidents. So we just knew the time was coming. The day that we just knew that we couldn't let him suffer anymore, we actually took him to the vet to be put down, which honestly, like, I did not want to do that at all. I wanted to just come home from work one day and just find my old man just gone peacefully in his sleep, but that's just not how it happened for us. And to this day, that was honestly the hardest thing that we had to do, was to make that decision, because being an animal, he couldn't speak for himself. As we went to the vet, my mom, my dad, and myself were all with him. We had him in his favorite blanket, and the vet came in and told us exactly what was going to happen. And my mom was holding his chin and looking into his eyes and telling him what a good boy he was, and I had my arms wrapped around him. Gosh, I feel like I'm always crying in these videos. But, you know, he was such an important part in our family. So all these years later, I still do get emotional about it, especially talking about it. But I held him, and I think the hardest part for us, me and my mom, because my dad was in the room but he was off to the side, was the moment that he actually died. The moment his body went limp in our arms. And oh gosh, I have never cried as hard as I did when that happened. The emotion that just came out of me, I mean, it was like a wailing crying that we had. And I don't think I've ever seen my dad cry, and my dad was bawling his eyes out there with us. But let me tell you something. Since we did have him put down, that's something that I would not change. Never in a million years would I not be there with my animal, because they are family. And never in a million years would I have wanted Bandit's last images of his life to be of a vet, something he hated to go to. I'm so happy that he was able to look at my mom and feel my arms around him when he actually did end up passing away. Earlier that day, I had actually called the pet funeral home in our community, and I told the person that answered that I was pretty certain we were going to be putting my dog down that day. And they had said if we were going to just give them a call, because they have normal business hours. They had normal business hours, I think, from 8 to 4, but when this all happened was after hours, and they were wonderful, because I had said that there was a very good chance when he did pass away, it was going to be later, and they said, no problem, just give him a call. So I had done that earlier that day. And once Bandit was dead, I called the pet funeral home again, and I had told them that our dog had died and we wanted to make an appointment with them. And he said, okay, are you going to be bringing him to us, or do we have to pick him up? Which I thought was really a good service to have, but I said, no, we're going to bring him to him. So from our vet to the funeral home, it was probably about a 20-minute drive. And as a funeral director, as I'm looking back at this, it's kind of like the similarities between a human passing away and my dog passing away really do line up a lot. For instance, when we brought Bandit into the vet, we walked in through the front door, and when he had died and I told the vet that I was going to be taking him with me, they actually made us exit through a back door, which if a person passes away, say in a hospital or in a nursing home, a lot of times they have us pick up that deceased from a back way, whether or not it's like a back entrance or what. They never have us go through the front door. So looking back, I see that similarity. Then when we got to the pet funeral home, Bandit was still wrapped up in his blanket that we had of him. Lay down. Sit down. Do you want to be in my video? We're not going to play right now. We're going to talk to everybody and tell them about bandits. Okay? We're going to tell them about bandits. You my good boy? Lay down. Good boy. Lay down. So when we got to the pet funeral home, Bandit was still in the blanket, and the funeral director greeted us there, and he took him, and he just kind of stepped off to the side a little bit, like went into a different room. And my dad and I actually went into like their office where they were making their arrangements. They had all the urns and everything all around. And I sat down with the funeral director, and we signed all the paperwork for Bandit's cremation, because I did have him cremated, and I picked out an urn for him. And then the vet had asked me if we wanted his name to appear in our local newspaper. Did I say vet? If I said vet, I meant funeral director. The funeral director asked us if we wanted his name to appear in the local newspaper, because every single month, I think it was like the second, say, Tuesday of every month, he would purchase like a little column by the death notices, have his pet funeral home, and have the names of all of the pets that had passed away in the previous month. I thought that was really neat, so we had done that for Bandit, so his name would appear in the newspaper. I thought that the best part of this, which I had no idea we were going to even get, I just thought that I was bringing Bandit there so that they could cremate him, but he had asked us if we wanted to have a couple of minutes with him. Again, before we said, you know, our final goodbyes and left the funeral home, and I said absolutely yes. So me and my dad actually went into the side room, which was a visitation room, and they had Bandit on a pillow. They had a blanket over him with flowers on either side of his body, and they had actually like set his features, because when he died, his tongue was hanging out of his mouth. And for the visitation, they actually like had his tongue back in his mouth, so he just looked like he was sleeping when we went. And my dad and I, we just spent time there with him. My mom didn't go into the room. My mom said she couldn't do it, that she had said her goodbyes at the vet, but me and my dad just hugged him, and we took some pictures of him for ourselves. And I actually took a little bit of Bandit's hair, or his fur, and I still have that to this day as well. So honestly, like, to have that final opportunity to say goodbye to Bandit, it was everything to me. And I look at the parallel too, once again, to a human passing away, and I think to myself, like, why would you deny yourself an opportunity to have one final goodbye? Because let me tell you, that was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But looking back, I would not have changed that for anything. I am so happy I had an opportunity to hug my boy and to kiss my boy one final time. The cremation was done really quickly. I had Bandit back home with us, I'd say within 3 days, and God, I didn't go to work for 3 days. After his death, honest to goodness, I laid in bed and I just cried for 3 days. I called into the funeral home and I said, I can't work because I could not stop crying. On the third day, my mom came into my bedroom and she was like, Lauren, it's been 3 days. You should get up, eat, and shower. And I did. And I started to find my my new normal again. And, you know, every single day after that, it did get a little bit easier to wake up. And it did get a little bit easier to go on with my day. And, you know, a couple years later, my husband and I adopted Lindy. And he's filled our life with so much joy ever since. And the love that I have for Lindy, it does not compare to the love that I had for Bandit. It is a completely different kind of love, but still that animal, pure, just unconditional love that I get from Lindy, it's the best. And I love him in a different way than I love Bandit, but God, do I still love him, and do I still love Bandit with my entire heart, if that even makes sense. But I know one day I'm going to go through all of these emotions again when my husband and I have to say goodbye to Lindy. But, you know, after going through it once and looking at all of the positives that these animals have brought to our lives, it's like, does it suck? Oh my gosh, yeah. Is it horrible and one of the worst pains I've ever gone through in my life? You better believe it. But the joy that these animals bring to us, I mean, he's worth it. Lindy is worth it, and Bandit was worth it too. So another reason why I could never work in funeral service for animals, because if this just goes to show, 5 years later, after the death of Bandit, and when I tell the story of losing him, I still cannot not cry. For anybody out there watching this video who has lost a pet in their lives, just know that my heart goes out to you, because I have been there and I get it. And sometimes people who don't have animals, they can't necessarily understand the grief that comes along with losing a pet because they don't have that special relationship. But just know that if you can't get over the death of an animal, or if you think that you're a little bit crazy or different because of the grief that you're experiencing, you are not alone in this. There are so many people out there who have these buddies that we're all going to be meeting on the Rainbow Bridge one day. So thank you all so much for listening to my story. Thank you all for liking this video and commenting. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you all next time.